Thank you, brother. Do a sound check here real quick. Whatever happened to like the fuzzy one, bro? So it was like a tribble.
Oh, the hairy one?
Is it good? Okay. Thank you, man.
I think we have one of those somewhere.
All right. I like what we did last week, or not last week, but the week before. And I'd like to do that, but our sound system doesn't really support it. I kind of went back and listened to it and couldn't really hear what anybody else was saying when we were all sitting down there. I don't know. Anybody else check? I checked.
Yeah, I listened to it. I thought good.
You could?
Yeah.
Maybe it was just my phone's audio's garbage.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's it. Anyway, I'm going to do this, and we're going to, at some point, get mics so everybody can have their own microphone.
Get a receiver. Stand them up.
Yeah. Let me just set this up real quick. We're going to be reading in the beginning out of Luke 5. It's going to be a second, but if anybody wants to go there, they can. Lord, my heart's kind of heavy at this moment. This isn't really that much of a downer message. I don't think it is really. It's just other things are weighing on my mind. So God, I just ask that you would set my heart and my mind on this message and exactly what you want to communicate to us in this moment. Be with us, be upon this message, be upon our hearts, that we would have room to receive it. God, I pray against distraction and weird impulses that kids might have to bang on walls or whatever else they might be tempted to do. And God, we just pray that you would protect us from distraction, that we give attention to what you want to say to this church right now, as we should. And we pray that in Jesus' name. Amen. Today we're going to be talking about discipleship, and that's sort of the goal of it. JoJo's on the run. It's the one thing about having a giant, bright orange security vest on. To see this kid run, like, got reflectors on. We see you. Anyways, we're going to be talking about discipleship today, but we're going to be looking at it from a completely different angle than we usually talk about discipleship. Usually when we're talking about discipleship, we're answering the question of how. How do we do this discipleship thing? We know we should be doing it. We're disciples of Christ. What else are we going to talk about? Of course, we're going to be hitting on this point of how to be disciples. And I think that's good. I think it's necessary. But there's another question that we need to ask, which is why? Why are we even getting out of bed in the morning to do this? What is motivating us to be disciples? And this is a heavy question. I don't think it's something you could preach on every week necessarily. You could probably preach every week on the how and never run empty on that, because there's so many variables at play. But generally speaking, we get to the bottom of the why. It's important. I mean, Jesus looks at the Pharisees. He doesn't really criticize how they're doing what they're doing. He just criticizes the why. You're doing this to be seen by men. This is what you're after. This is what you're trying to do this whole time. And he says you've received your reward in full. Don't expect anything from God. So can you imagine spending your life studying the how? How do I be the kind of disciple Jesus wants me to be? And then you get to the door and you're disqualified, not because you messed up on the how, but because your why was wrong. Because you were doing it for something other than what God wanted you to do it for. So that's where I want to sort of I want to prime the pump with this idea, and then we're going to take you in a different direction for a minute. So when we're looking at why we do something, like even in a very classical stance, I don't know if I feel like there's kids right here. I don't want to distract everybody. Like, oh, did Olive get the 3-pointer right there? No, she didn't. She's 9. Okay. Yeah. That's woo. What'd you do? What'd you do, bro? Yeah, that one's a little crunchy. Okay. But anyways, when we're looking at the why of doing something, it can be a little tricky to know it. And we just assume it. And we assume, well, if there's something off there, we would know. And you probably do know, right? It's just you're not necessarily at the full conscious level. You know there's something off, something doesn't smell right. I'm sure the Pharisees knew there was something a little bit off with their why, but they just didn't think about it very much. They were too focused on getting the job done. They're checking their boxes. And there's basically 3 reasons why we do something. There's the carrot. I want something, so I'm chasing after this thing because I want this prize, this carrot, this thing I'm chasing. And then there's the stick, right? I'm doing this because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't do it. And whether it's full on fear or stress or just a sense of guilt or shame, if I don't get out of bed and do this, I'm going to feel like garbage. It's a motivation of aversion. I want to avoid something, or I'm pursuing something. And then there is this idea that's alluded to in scripture that you could be motivated. It's possible you could be motivated by selfless love, that you love this thing so much that you lay down your life for it. And it's not really because you're avoiding anything that you're afraid of. It's not really that you're pursuing anything for yourself. There's no self-interest at all. It's because you're captivated by the love of God. And so you're selflessly laying down your life for this person or this thing. That's the third option. So kind of like a clear example of that would be, I got a bunch of goats. My wife has a bunch of goats. And every night I got to get them to go in the barn so I can shut the door, lock them inside so Coyote doesn't eat them. It's for their own good, but they're too stupid to know why I'm locking them in the barn. I got to get them to go in there. And so on a good day, I use the carrot, right? That's what I want to use, which is I take a flake of hay and I throw it in their feeder in the barn, and they see there's food in the barn. They run in the barn, and then I come around the back and I shut the door and I lock them in. And easy, right? That's the carrot. Here it is. Chase the good thing. Chase after the good thing in life. Food, goats. Come on, you dumb goats. Here's some food. And they run and get it. But every once in a great while, one of those goats will not go in even after I throw the food in. It's always the same with 1 to 2 goats. It's always one of them. And that goat won't go in. And it's interesting. That goat is just as fat, just as hungry, just as crazy about hay as any other goats. But that goat's the more fearful goat. And sometimes that goat's fear overwhelms its desire for hay, and it just won't go in the barn. Something, just for whatever reason, scared to go in the barn, won't go in the barn. And if I can't get the goat to go in because of that, what do? I pick up a branch off the ground, I pick a switch off the ground, and I start whipping the ground. I start screaming at the goat. I chase the goat around the cage for a minute, and eventually the goat's scared enough of me that it goes, forget it, and runs into the barn, and I shut the door and lock it in. After a minute, it goes, oh, it's just a barn. And it goes, hey, there's food over there, and it starts eating, and it's all over. So you got the carrot and you got the switch, right? You got the stick. And those are the 2 big motivators in life. God does talk about this thing called selfless love. In my opinion, we jump to that conclusion a lot. We go, oh, I'm motivated by selfless love, or I could be motivated by selfless love. And most people that are talking about selfless love, they wouldn't know it if it came up and bit them in the night. They have no idea what that is, really. They think they know what it is, but they don't. The same person who's talking about selfless love for their husband will divorce that fool when he loses his job 2 years later. The first person that says, I have selfless love for my kid, then their kid goes crazy, and does some weird stuff, gets pregnant, comes out of the closet, goes to prison, some crazy happens, and it shames them in front of the rest of their family, and they won't talk to that kid anymore. And it's like, is that really the love of Jesus? I'm not saying you agree with what they've done, but is that the love of Jesus? But a lot of people talk about selfless love. They talk about it a lot. But usually they're just being high-minded. They think they're that spiritual, and usually we're not that spiritual. So what we're really talking about most of the time, why are people being disciples of Jesus? We're talking carrot or stick. That's what we're talking about. And 99.99% of the time, we're talking about somebody who rolls out of bed, and if he does anything for Jesus, it's because he can hear that stick hitting the ground behind him. That's what's going on. He goes, that thing's coming for my behind. I need to get up and do something. And that's why he's motivated to do anything for the kingdom, is because he's afraid of what will happen if he doesn't. It might not be shaken, trembling with fear, panic attack, terror, but it might come off as stress. It might come off as, and it can be very apathetic. That's the thing people don't realize. If you run on fear all the time, you don't feel afraid. You feel numb. Because when you run every day, all day, you shut off your emotions. Why would you keep them turned up? If all they're doing is screaming, we're going to die all the time, you just turn that down. That's what happens. Fear is a great motivator when it's a wake-up call. Fear is great when it's like most of the time you're just down here normal. And then all of a sudden you're on the edge of a roof and you look down, whoa, I'm not used to, whoa, and you have a little moment of fear there. It's a wake-up call. You're in a dark alleyway. There's some fool over there with a pipe. You're going, that doesn't look right. Wake-up call, a little feeling in the pit of your stomach. But fear is a terrible fuel. It does not work in the long term. It's not emotionally sustainable for you to be running off of fear all the time. It's supposed to catch you and wake you up when you're asleep at the wheel. It's not supposed to be something you're running off of all the time. Because why? Because what is the motivation of fear? It's just to escape the thing you're afraid of. If you're one step ahead of the thing you're afraid of, you have fulfilled your desire with fear. And it sucks, really. And you'll see this. You'll see this with men that come into marriage counseling. They were not concerned about their marriage the entire time. They knew things were going wrong. They saw the writing on the wall. We're not exactly healthy. Yeah. Then all of a sudden, divorce begins to raise. I think this chick's going to freaking leave me. And she's going to take my kids and all my stuff. And I'm going to be that dude. And all of a sudden, fear pops up and they're very motivated. Let's go to counseling. Let's do all this stuff. But you know that the second they get 10 feet in front of this divorce thing, they're going to go right back into dormancy mode, because that's just their goal, to avoid the consequence, to put out the fire that's on fire right now. They don't have any goal in their marriage other than, I don't want to get divorced. And so as long as they're half a block in front of that, they don't care. In my mind, I was picturing, this is a throwback to my druggy days, but that movie Friday, there was the neighborhood bad guy rode the squeaky bicycle. I think it was Debo, right? He's coming down. You could hear him coming, right? I want you to imagine that Debo's coming to beat you up, and your motivation is fear. I don't want to get beat up by this guy. So you just start running, and you run. And eventually, I think he's gone. And then all of a sudden, he's turning the corner, run. Imagine a whole day running from somebody you're afraid of. What's success? Success is just, I don't see him. I don't hear him. And I get to take a minute. Oh my goodness, that was close. And then, oh no, and you start running again. And what happens? If you're just trying to stay a step ahead of the bully, what happens is that step ahead gets smaller. At first, if I hear the bicycle squeak, I'm still running. I can't stop running until I'm away. Now, if I see him, I won't wait. If I hear him, that's okay. But I see him, I'm going to run. And then it's like, well, why run until he's 2 blocks away? Then I got to run. And then it's like, well, why not? Why isn't 1 block away good enough, man? Let me rest a little bit longer. And then pretty soon you're like, he's 5 lengths away from me, 4 lengths. That's good enough. And that's what happens. Is fear is not a sustainable fuel. You're numb all the time because you're putting that fear down into a numb place. And what happens is anytime you don't get killed, you won. So you play that line closer and closer because, hey, he didn't get me. It doesn't matter if he didn't get me by a mile or by a minute. It's horseshoes and hand grenades. Close is close enough. A near miss is still a miss. I'll take it. But the problem is when you aim big on the target, you miss big. And big misses cost you something. It's not a wise thing to do. You want to aim small, miss small, and it doesn't cost you very much. That's the goal in life. So it's like when you're talking about a guy, like, man, I'm going to get, my wife caught me and I was doing all this sexual weird stuff online and talking to people and doing all these things. And you'd be like, oh man, you need to clean. Yeah, I got to clean all this stuff up. But then the guy will want to aim big. I just don't want to commit adultery. But what about the pornography? What about this and that? Well, maybe we should do this and maybe we should do that so you can't get to the point. Maybe you need to be careful about the movies you're watching. You can't watch Game of Thrones if you have a lust issue. Come on, there's boobies on that show all day long. What are you thinking? And you start talking to a guy, but he goes, no, I don't want to aim that small. That's uncomfortable. I want to aim big. I just don't want to make the big mistakes. But you go, bro, you are going to miss. And if you're aiming at a target, like you have a paper target at the end of the gun range and you're aiming with your gun, you go, as long as I hit the target, I'm good. That's a man-sized target. All I got to do is hit that target somewhere. Then yeah, okay, boom, boom. What happens? You're going to miss. You're going to miss eventually. And what's the miss going to be? I'm completely off the target. You aim big, you're going to miss big. Eventually you're going to miss. It's going to be a big miss and it's going to cost you. If you aim small, I'm aiming for that little red dot in the center of mass. That's going to be difficult. You're going to have to do some training. You're going to have to deal with some disappointment. It's going to put some stress in your life. But if you miss, and everybody misses, it's going to be a small miss. You're still on the target. You're still okay. If you're aiming, well, I just don't want to chat up. So I don't want to flirt with some woman because who knows what happens then. I just need to catch myself before I flirt with some strange woman. That's a pretty big aim, bro. And if you miss, what are you doing? You're flirting with some strange woman. There might be a heavy cost to slipping up if you're aiming that big. But if you're aiming, I'm not even saying this is really aiming small, but if you're aiming small as I don't want to take the second look. If I'm walking through the gym and Miss Booty Shorts walks by, I'm not taking the second look. That's my aiming small. And are you going to miss sometimes? Sure. Sometimes I'm going to take the second look and then I'm going to go and I'm going to go before God. I'm going to treat it as the big sin that it is. I'm going to repent. I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to fight the battle right there. And guess what? That's as bad as me screwing up gets. That's a pretty small miss and that's a pretty small cost. But that follows everywhere. In your discipleship with Jesus, I want to pursue God. I want to do all these things. But if you're actually motivated by fear, then you just need to stay one step away of your worst fear and you're cool. How do you get anywhere doing that? Oh, just one step ahead in my marriage, just one step away. With my kids, I don't do anything about my kids unless I'm afraid of something going wrong with them. Unless I'm afraid they're turning into bad kids, unless I'm afraid I'm losing control, they're talking up, they're doing something crazy. Unless fear wakes me up, I don't do anything with them. Not in my marriage, not with my kids, not with my friendships, not with God. Unless fear is cracking that whip behind me, I'm not doing anything. And even when it's there, what happens? Because I ride that edge, because I depend on the fear to motivate me. Instead of finding a better motivator, what happens? I get numb to the fear over time and I play it closer and closer and closer until one day my big aim is going to equal a big miss that's going to cost me huge. That's just the nature of that game. It wasn't designed. The fear of the Lord wasn't designed to be your perpetual motivator. It was meant to be the net that catches you when you fall asleep at the wheel. The little buzzer strip on the edge of the road, right? You're driving on a road and go, you hit that thing. If you rode on that all the time, you're just, and you just rode on the edge of it, you fall asleep to that. And when you go off of it, it won't wake you up. There's nothing on the other side of that buzzer strip that's going to wake you up till you hit the tree. But that's what we do. We ride the thing that's supposed to be just the alarm system. We just ride it until that car alarm becomes the lullaby that lulls us to sleep. And we wake up tomorrow and our car's jacked and we're like, I don't get it. Well, bro, you let your car alarm go off every night, hour after hour after hour, and eventually become a lullaby to you. That's what happened. This is what happens in our spiritual life as we try to live by the stick. Oh, I'll be worried, just worried about, and you're not. What happens when you're not, when you ride that edge? Is you get numb to it first, and then what do you want out of life? If you're running off of fear, all you want in your life is to get away from the thing you're afraid of. All of you've gone from Technicolor 3D life, all these emotions, all these wonderful things, and your life has gone into a two-tone black and white affair, and there's only two notes. There is terror, it's gonna get me, and I got away. That's it. Those are the two emotions you got. And eventually what you realize is I got away doesn't feel good enough. Think about it. If you're running from Debo all day long, and you'd have those terrible, you think back on the day, those terrible moments when that fool almost got me. I could feel his fingers just right past the back of my neck, man. He almost got me. And the rest of the time, I'm running. And I have a couple of moments where I got around the corner and he wasn't. You have that little moment of relief. But even in that moment, it's poisoned by, but I know any second now I'm going to hear that bicycle again. Because escape is not real. It's just this temporary thing. And because you live on that edge, eventually your terror will become apathy. You'll just shut off emotionally. I don't give a crap about my marriage. I don't give a crap about my walk with God right now. I'm just so what the hell is the point of this hamster wheel I'm running on? And I never get ahead anyway. And I'm just putting out fires all day. What is the point of this thing? And then what do you desire? I just want to get off this hamster wheel. What is your desire for? What are you beginning to lust for? Because you've given up all your other things. You're lusting for escape. Not real escape from your enemy. Don't get me wrong. What you're lusting for is to disappear out of this world. Just forget there is a bully riding around after me. To forget this world exists and just zone out of it for a while. I want an escape. And that's why people will have this giant hook in them for addiction. And they don't understand why. It doesn't matter. I'll give up this and this thing pops up. I get rid of the booze and all of a sudden I want to gamble. I get rid of the gambling. All of a sudden I'm gained 20 pounds eating this, or I'm watching 4 hours of TV, or I'm doing or I get into my business and I can tell that I'm just trying to feed my ego in my business. And that's all I'm doing here. Whatever it is, you'll find it. You'll find that addictive thing. Why? Because you can't live the life you're trying to live. God didn't make you to live on the end of a lash like a slave. And when you live that way, you have to escape one way or another, and you have a market in you. And the devil could sell you 100 different drugs that all have the same promise. I can help you forget that your life sucks this bad. I can help you forget that for a couple hours tonight, and you are gone. You will sell your soul for that. That's the danger. That's the danger zone to be in. That's how people end up like, man, how did this guy go so far? He's at strip clubs. He's doing cocaine. He's supposed to be a pastor. What happened? What happened was he only lived his life out of the fear of the lash, and he ran of that, and he was so numb and so exhausted from outrunning the devil by 2 steps every day, just nipping at his heels the whole day, that he had such a hunger for an escape. And he took 1 step at a time into the darkness, saying, if you can help me forget that. And if you think about it, what's the dumbest thing you can do while you're running away from Debo? It's to sit down on that curb and smoke a joint and pass out on the corner. That's the last thing you want to be doing, is have that fool catch you. All of a sudden he's picking you up. You're, what? Oh, I forgot I was running from you. Yeah, that's what that thing offered. I could forget. But it actually puts me in a worse position. And that's most people when they have this issue, especially in their walk with God, especially in their marriage, especially in relationships, is they want to escape the constant, I'm failing, it's falling apart. And they try to escape. And then what happens while they're stoned? What happens when they're watching TV? What happens when they're in the hospital because they have arterial sclerosis from eating corn dogs? Like, dude, I'm just trying to feed the hole in me. What happens? That thing that they were terrified of, that relationship imploding, them forgetting who Jesus really is, their marriage ending, their kids hating them. It happens while they're playing. The very thing they're afraid of and running from, they dive into the deep end of that through the addiction. Now, what's the solution? Solution is to pursue. You don't have to, it's almost like being disqualified in a race. That's how Jesus talks about it. Like, You Pharisees, you worked so hard on all your strategies, but you didn't compete according to the rule. You disqualified yourself from the outset because you didn't do this thing for God. That was your problem. So can you imagine that? Can you imagine that with your marriage and with your kids? There's a disqualification, right? In a lot of races, if you fall so many laps behind the last person, you're just disqualified. They pull you out of the race. You're done. And so you can imagine I run the race just to stay that far ahead. I just want to finish the race. I don't care if I win. I don't care if I place last. I just don't want to be disqualified. So what am I doing? I'm just staying in front of that guy. He's the disqualifying runner that runs at the back. If you fall behind him, you're out. Can you imagine how you'd slowly get closer and closer? I only need to be, why do I need to be a whole lap ahead of him? I could be half a lap ahead of him, a quarter of a lap. I could be 15 feet ahead of him. I'm still caught. That's what happens, right? You're edging to the back of it. And you think, man, I lived my whole life with this guy nipping at my heels. Not if you ran the race to win the prize, you wouldn't even remember that guy was back there. You're not cognizant of fear. You're not cognizant of the safety net when you are running the race to win the prize. That's what God calls us to, right? He doesn't say run the race at your own pace, as slow and lazy as you can, just don't get disqualified. As long as you don't get disqualified, you make it. Technically, that's true, but that is not what God says. God, through the mouth of Paul, says what? Run the race as if to win the prize, as if to win that crown. Now, here's the problem that we have. Usually, God's crown is earthy. It's earthy and it's tangible, and we don't think it's spiritual enough. That's not a very spiritual crown. Like Abraham, what did God say? I'm going to give you a bunch of land, and I'm going to give you kids. And whatever you put your hand to, I'm going to bless it. And if someone tries to curse you, I'm going to curse them. These are the promises of the old covenant. Now, there was a day when you could look at Abraham and say, Abraham's a friend of God. What motivates him? He's growing into the selfless love of the Lord. That's what he's motivated by. But if you look at how Abraham got there, maybe in the beginning, he's like, man, I am a man who was born a pagan, raised among pagans, surrounded by idol worship, and I found the true God. I got to obey. If he says I need to get the heck out of this country, the heck away from my demon-possessed family and go seek him in this land, I'm going to go. Maybe it was the goads for a while. Maybe it was the whip for a while. But eventually, what happened with Abraham? Abraham started running for the prize. And the prize wasn't some heavenly vision he couldn't imagine. It was physical land and physical offspring and tangible blessing in his life. And that's what he was pursuing. And eventually he got to this point where you could say he's the friend of God. That's what's most important to Abraham. It doesn't matter whether he gives up his physical son on Mount Moriah. It doesn't matter if he doesn't actually get to own the land God's promising to him. It's going to go to his descendants. He doesn't care about that anymore. Eventually he gets there. But if we look at the journey that Abraham took, he ran to get the crown, and the crown is what was in jeopardy half the time. I don't really possess this land. There are these kings. This guy's going to kill me. This guy's going to kill me. I have an issue with Lot about the land. I have an issue. Will I have a son or not? Now I have a son, but is it the right son now? Oh, now I got the son of promise now, but now you want me to sacrifice him. It was the earthly, simple blessing that he was being dealt with the whole time. Think about that. How often are we just too high-minded for it? We go, I want to be motivated in my discipleship for Christ because of my selfless love for the Lord. And I just want to be like, reality check, bro. You don't have any selfless love for the Lord. You're a human being. Selfless love for God, that's only found in one heart in the whole universe, the heart of Jesus Christ. And one day, God willing, you will be in such union with the heart of Christ, you'll be able to use that for your fuel. But most of us, that is a pipe dream at the moment. And all it does is it makes us despise the crown that God's trying to set before us. That's not spiritual enough for me. That's not holy enough for me. That doesn't make me look good enough. And so what do we end up doing? This is what we think. We go, well, if I have this motive in my mind, that's my motive. Not necessarily. You have to look at how you're actually operating. Most of us look at our lives, what? We're running from the fear. Why? Because we refuse to take a step up in the world. We wanted to skip over the crown to the selfless love. And God's like, the only way you get to the selfless love is chasing the crown. That's the only way you're going to motivate yourself to do anything but lay on the couch until there's a fire to put out. That's going to be your walk with God. That's going to be your marriage. That's going to be your kids. Because you're going to sit on the couch and do nothing unless something's on fire. And then you're going to get up, you're going to put that fire out, you're going to go right back to the couch. And eventually you're going to be like, that's not even a big enough fire for me to get. I'm going to let that catch on. I'm going to let a few more things catch on fire before I get off this couch for this. You're going to play that line until it costs you something you do not want to pay. This is the nature of that why question. You get it all the time with guys in marriage because they don't want to do anything. They're just like, I don't want to think about marriage. I don't want to be overwhelmed by all the responsibilities of my marriage. I just want to put it on the back burner. And then this little thought will climb up in your mind. Man, if I do this for the next 15 years and then my kids move out, will I have a marriage? Will I like this woman? Will she like me? Will this be anything left to this thing by then? You have these little, and what is it? It's the whipping of that stick. That's how you're like, oh, I better get up and do something. I better go get her some flowers. I better go try to do something. But what? It's just until you put out the fire of that fear. As soon as that fear feels like it's slipped away, you don't have any motivation to do anything because you're running off of the fear. And if God pointed out some earthly crown to you in your marriage, you go, no, I'm a man of God. I want to love my wife because of her pure, beautiful heart. And this is what I want to let's rewind the clock. Why'd you marry this girl? Now, I know you prayed about it and I know God said so. I know you checked your boxes, but why did you even pray about this girl? There's a bunch of probably weird looking chicks that went by. You never asked God whether you were supposed to marry those girls. You prayed about your wife, not because you noticed her magnificent heart and some spiritual epiphany, but because she looked good in those jeans, bro. You looked at her and there was some earthly crown that caught your eye. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's like saying you get married and go, well, we're not going to consummate this marriage. We're not going to have physical sex in this marriage. That is so earthy. That is so small. We're going to connect in our hearts by reading poetry to each other. Oh, and start singing to one another. You'll be like, you are so high-minded. You're not going to get anywhere as close to your wife as if you grew this. I'm not saying make your marriage into a porno. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying that maybe sex is a stepping stone to greater intimacy. Maybe that's a place to start. To say, and not just like, oh, I want to have a multiple orgasmic thing, but maybe you could be looking at it and saying, I don't want it just to be this place of physical vulnerability. I want it to be this place where it's really us being naked on all levels with each other. And there's a forced intimacy in sex where she's seeing you without your clothes. You'd be turning purple embarrassed if anybody else saw you naked like that. And there's a forced invulnerability and go, let's lean into that on all levels. Let's connect on a deeper level. There are things that are there and we go, oh, that's too earthy. That's too simple. That's too small. And God's like, you're too high-minded. Who do you think you are to despise the carrot that I'm hanging in front of you? And that's what we'll do with our relationship with God. We're trying to be the monk on the mountain. And God's trying to talk to us about, this is where I want you to go next in your business, or this is what I want to bear fruit in your life here or there. And we're just too spiritually minded. It sounds like a good thing unless you're not spiritual. Then it's not useful at all. It's like saying I have a map to Canada, but you ain't in Canada. The map's great, bro. And when you get to Canada, you'll know where you are. Right now, you're in Arizona, bud. You got no idea where you are with that map. Put down that map, get the real map. There are so many times we're just not being real about where we are. We're shooting for this high thing. We think we're going to get extra credit for trying to step up into some weird places. Like, learn how to add before you try to take calculus, man. You're not there. And it's a pride thing. It's an ego thing to sit there and be like, this is where I'm really at. These things are beautiful, but it's a metaphor to me. It doesn't motivate me. I need something that I can touch, something that's tangible. And I hope the day comes when that is tangible to me. I hope the day comes when I can pursue Christ because I love him that selflessly. I hope the day comes when I can pursue my wife because I see her and it's really for her heart and the fullness of that. But right now, it might be about that companionship. It might be about that friendship. It might be about something a lot smaller and a lot simpler than what you think in your ego it should be. But you know what that means? it means that you're going to have the lowest motivation at all, which is just, I don't want it to break. I don't want to fail. I don't want it to be on me when it blows up. That's the smallest, the weakest, the most pathetic form of motivation. And that's what it is. You can't skip a grade, bro. You can't just be like, I'm jumping over all the earthly crowns, all the crowns God's trying to inspire me. I'm jumping over the prize, the selfless love. No, you're not. You're just refusing to take the next step forward, and you're sinking back to what? To the safety net of fear motivation. And that is a recipe to ruin that relationship. Whether it's with your kids. I mean, how many of us can we look at a relationship with our parents or even with our own kids at a certain time? We look at it and say, you know what went wrong here is I didn't do anything unless fear told me to. I didn't do anything unless I thought, oh man, the wheels are about to come off. If something's on fire, I got to put it out. And if we looked at relationships like, I'm not close to my dad. Why? Because he never showed up unless something was on fire. And as time went by, it had to be a bigger and bigger fire. And what was the message I got out of that? And what did that do to us? How many marriages die for the same reason? How many people wander away from Christ and completely shipwreck their faith? And if you really looked at it, it's because you're fear-based, man. I'm glad for the fear of the Lord. Catch me when I'm falling. I'm glad to have the alarm system. But if that's my indicator, I'm riding the edge of that. I'm riding that little burr strip on the side of the highway all the time. I'm going to screw up huge. It's just a matter of time before that happens. And so today I want to lock that idea into us. We're going to look at that idea, and we're going to look at that idea in the life of the Apostle Peter. I think there's something when we put it in the context of a story that we can relate to, and we get into the dust with him on that, it will connect, and the Holy Spirit will have opportunity to click that into the places where it fits in your own life a lot easier. So I'm going to start with a reading out of Luke 5 to sort of bring this home. This is Luke chapter 5. It says, on one occasion, while Jesus was standing by the Sea of Galilee with a crowd pressing in on him to hear the word of the Lord, he saw two boats at the edge of the waters, and the fishermen had left them and they were washing their nets. This is what they do when they're packing up to go home, right? They wash the seaweed out of their nets. The fishermen had left, they were washing their nets, and Jesus got into the boat that belonged to Simon Peter. And he asked him to put the boat a little bit from the shore, and sitting down, he taught the people from the boat. And when Jesus had finished speaking, he said to Simon, now put into the deep waters and let down your nets for a catch. Rabbi, Simon answered, we've worked hard. We've labored all night. We have caught nothing. But because you say so, I will let down the net. And when they had done so, they caught such a huge number of fish that their nets began to tear on account of the weight. So they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and they filled both boats so full of fish that both boats were in danger of sinking. And when Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees, which is interesting because you don't really think about this until you put the whole story together in your mind. But he just filled his entire boat with fish. So Jesus has been sitting on the bow the whole time teaching people. They now filled the boat so full of fish that when he goes to fall at Jesus' feet, he can't get to this guy's feet. He just gets to his knees because he's sitting down. So that imagery, he's surrounded by this amazing miracle. He falls to his knees and he says to Jesus' knees, and he says, depart from me, Lord, I am a sinful man. For he and his companions were astonished. They were beside themselves at this catch of fish they had taken in, as were his partners, James and John, the sons of Zebedee. Do not be afraid, Jesus answered Simon. From now on, you will be a fisher of men. And when they had brought the boats ashore, they left everything and followed Jesus. Now I want to frame this story a little bit for you guys, just to connect it with our lives a little bit. This is before Peter has become a disciple of Jesus, but he knows Jesus. We know this if we read in the Synoptics. His brother, Peter's brother, Andrew, is an on-again, off-again disciple of John the Baptist. He hangs around John the Baptist a lot. And Andrew's one of the two disciples when Jesus walks by that John points him out and he says, "Behold the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world." And Andrew and another guy are the two guys that start following Jesus. And they say, "Rabbi, where are you staying?" And he takes them over. They have a sleepover wherever Jesus is staying. And then the next day, what does Andrew do? He goes and he gets his brother Simon and he brings Simon he says, "We found the Messiah," and he brings Simon to Jesus. And Simon names him right there. He says, "You are no longer Simon the reed." He says, "You are Petros, the rock, Peter, the rock." And he names him. So Peter has had an experience of Jesus. He understands there's something super spiritual, something stirring in me I've never experienced in my entire life around this guy. This guy is the rabbi of rabbis. I've never had an opportunity like this. But what does Peter do? He goes home to his wife and his house and his business and his boat, and he goes and he's a fisherman. How can I go? How can I be? And we'll say, well, Jesus didn't call him yet and all this stuff. That's an unknown quantity. Later on at the end of John's gospel, John has Jesus explaining to them, other rabbis are chosen by their disciples, but I have chosen you. That was not known back at this point. As far as Peter's concerned, Jesus is a rabbi like any other rabbi, and rabbis don't choose disciples. Disciples go to the rabbis and say, "Can I follow you?" And then they follow them. Peter hasn't done this, and there's no excuse for it, except that he has a business and except he has a boat and he's got a wife and a house, and how is he going to pay for it all? He can't just go following Jesus, so he doesn't do it. He just says, "Well, I'm just a guy. I have a business. I go to work. I go to church every Sunday. I'm trying to be a good man." And that's what he's doing. Now we stop right there. We go, what is his motivation? Well, there's a lot of good sounding ones. I love my wife. I love our life. This business is fulfilling. I feel called to it. All these different things. But if we really peel Peter, what's his motivation? He's afraid. He's feeling the call of God on his heart, but he's not going to do it. Why? Because he's afraid of what that promotion would mean. It'd be a great thing to be a disciple of Jesus, but the promotion has a cost. I can't be that and be what I am right now. I'm going to have to let go of my safety net over here. I have a business that works and it pays the bills, and I have a house and I have a wife. And what happens if I walk away from this and that doesn't work? So Peter, without much prayer, without much ado, without any much thought, just said, "I'm going to stay here and keep doing what I'm doing." And I can tell you just from personal experience being a man, this is how this works, is Peter settles in to that life and he's running from fear. And every day it's something else. There's a leak in the boat. How are we going to pay for it? Oh, we need gas for this. Oh, we need new nets. The nets aren't going to make it another season. Okay, I got to figure out how I'm going to. There's always something. His wife's nagging at him. That wall is not going to, we need to replace the wall in the right living room. The thing's rotting away over there. So he's doing this thing. He's running. He's 2 steps ahead of Debo all the time. Just trying to keep ahead. And then he gets numb. And he rides the edge of this thing. He rides the edge of it. Edge of failure with God, edge of failure with his wife, edge of failure probably with his business some of the times. He don't want to take the risk. He don't want to get out there and do the next thing. I'll just stay here. He knows that I can't stagnate like this forever. It kills businesses all the time, but he's going to do it anyways because fear. And at the same time, there's this growing hunger for escape. It's just getting stronger and stronger. Maybe there are times when Peter drinks a little bit too much. Then he gets a handle. I can't do that. And then he eats too much. And then he's hanging out with his buddies, joking all night. Whatever it was. He was doing his thing. Now, what's a common drug, a common addiction in this situation? I think it's the most common one, and we see it in this story, is ego. The ultimate addiction and the ultimate escape from a mind-numbingly boring, broken life is just to have a big ego and lie to yourself about how important you are and how important everything is that you do. Now I watch all these different clips of different people doing different things, and sometimes it's an electrician working on something, sometimes it's a drywall guy, sometimes it's a guy doing concrete, sometimes it's a guy breaking a horse. Sometimes it's an actor talking about how he's doing acting. It's Michael Caine talking about, go get the lens with this eye, not with that eye over here, and talking about this whole thing, right? And the thing that's true of all men, it's probably true of all people, but all men certainly, is you start doing a job for a while, and then you convince yourself that this is probably the most important job in the world. You just start talking yourself into it. This coal makes U.S. steel. If we didn't have this, we didn't have electricity, we wouldn't have lights, we would have, being electric. You know, chefs used to cook for kings because it was the most trusted position in the kingdom, because then that's how you knew there wasn't food in the poison in the king's food, was the chef would know. And you'll hear people, you go to the people talking about drywall, talking about cement, talking about whatever, they'll start talking themselves into the idea that this is a hugely important job. Slowly, gradually, they'll shrink their world into this little thing. And I'm sure Peter did that. He looked around and said, Galilee's economy is based on fishing. If there were not fishermen in Galilee, Galilee would be gone. We wouldn't even have a town here. Forget about the soccer program for the little kids. We would have nothing if it wasn't for fishermen like me. He starts building up the idea of how important his thing is, right? You'll hear actors, what do we really live for? It's the arts. If we didn't have the arts, if we didn't have movies that transported us, what would we have? And people talk themselves into this idea that what they're doing in their life's important. Why? Because they can't live with the idea that it isn't that important. And then what do? Then they start talking into themselves how good they are at their job. So here's an electrician, hear him talk, he's the best electrician there ever was. Here's a landscaper. Well, no one knows how to mow a lawn like I do. You get into this place. Oh, I'm a stay-at-home dad. Man, I got this figured out. Nobody knows how to raise sons like I do. And there'll be this idea. It grows up. And I'm not even saying that Peter's a bad fisherman. He probably does do really, really good as a fisherman. But we build this up. Why? Because ego is a drug. And that's why it has to get more and more ridiculous over time. We think we're better and better, and the job's more and more important. We're like, what are you talking about, dude? You're a fisherman. How you got such a big ego when you're fishing? You ever hung out? Like I could see right now, you're at a family barbecue. You're standing there, and here's some guy, he can't help himself, man. He's just like, yeah, he's just talking about his job. And you're just like, dude, this guy works at the Home Depot. How is he putting on airs like this right now? He's a high school football coach, man. Like, what does he think? The NFL's going to call him up, man? Like, it's not happening. But it's what guys do. That ego grows up. And we don't even see it as ego. Peter wouldn't have thought he was being egotistical here. He wouldn't have seen it that way. Jesus says, throw the net in the water. He goes, that ain't going to work, Jesus. That ain't going to work, man. You know what? Because I've been fishing all night and I didn't catch anything. You see what I'm saying? I am the Lord of the fish here. I know how to catch a fish. If there was a fish you could catch, I would have caught it. There's no way some dumb freaking advice like, hey, go into the deep water and throw the net. Oh my God, I didn't think of that, Jesus. Go in the deep water and put a net. Oh, I didn't see that coming. You see it? In his mind, he's Lord of the fish. Nobody's Lord of the fish except Jesus. But this is what we do, is at best as men, what we can say is God's given me stewardship in this area. He's given me this job. He's given me this task. At best, Peter can say, I'm a steward of the Sea of Galilee. And it's my job to catch the fish that God wants me to catch, that he leads to my nets. And there's humility there. But what happens is when you build up your job, and then you build up the importance of how well you do it, how big that is. Well, I've really learned a lot, man, and I really know how to do my job really well, and I've figured it out. And there's ego in your voice when you're talking about it. This is the problem. You are magnifying yourself at the cost of shrinking everything else out. Because ultimately, pride, it's only one lie. Pride is always the same lie. I'm God. It's always that lie. It may be a miniature God. I'm God of lawn care. Well, it's still God. It's still trying to get into that place where I'm the God of this thing. I'm the God of this. I'm the God of that. I'm Lord. I am Lord. That's where it's always going. And so Peter, he starts out as the steward of the sea. And there's probably some, I don't know what I'm doing. But then he starts to learn what he's doing. He starts catching fish, and there are people in the world that look, dang, Peter, you're good at catching these fish, man. And he goes, no, that's God. That's like 50% God, guys. That's like 50% God doing this. And they think he's being humble. And he's like, no, Peter, that's 99% God. What are you doing saying it's 50%? But that's how in our mind, we're not saying it out loud. We're like, yeah, it's mostly me, but God. But hey, it's God, all right? You know, I don't know where my business would be without God. I know where it would be if I never got out of bed. It wouldn't exist because I'm kind of a big deal. That's what we do. Whatever it is, you got your job, whatever you're doing, we're investing in it. I go to work every day. I'm pulling wire through the wall, whatever it is. Peter's thing, it's fishing. And he's building up this ego, and it makes him feel in control. And it makes him think he's Lord of the fish. There's some part of his brain where he says, if I go out there, I'm going to catch a fish because I'm that good at it now. You hear it all the time. I hear these entrepreneurs on Facebook and stuff. They say, take all my money away. Give me $100. In a month, I'll be a millionaire again. Just let me do it. And I think there's been a guy who's tried to do it. I don't know if he succeeded or not. But even then, I'm like, dude, that's cheating. That's like if I went through a corn maze and I said, put me at the front of the maze. I'll do it again in 5. You already did it once. Like, you're not going to go make $1 million a different way. You're going to follow the exact thing. You're going to call the people you already have relationships with. You're going to be hitting people up. You already know all the angles on this thing. You want to impress me? Say you're going to take 500 yen, go to China where you don't speak the language and become a millionaire. I'll give you a whole year to do it. All of a sudden, it's a different thing. But there's an ego that grows up inside of us. And that ego says, I have mastered this. I understand. And we think our part is so big. And it's not. It's not big at all. But we don't see it. And that's why Jesus sets up Peter in a very specific way. Jesus shows up. Peter just fished all night. What did he catch? Nothing. Big zip. Do you think he thought he was going to catch nothing when he went out? No, he was swaggering a little bit. He'll go out and make some money. And he went out and he fished and he caught nothing. You better believe hour 2, hour 3. There's other dudes in the boat. It's like, all right, guys, I'm gonna break out my special chum. This got some garbanzo beans. We'll throw this. This will get the fish in. Just give it a few minutes. Then that doesn't work. Okay, we're gonna bring it around to the point. I always catch fish on. We're gonna bring it over to the point, and we're gonna only go 20 feet deep on this drop because there's always fish right there. And he just slowly throughout the night, he's just talking. I got this, until it's over. There's probably between 4 and 6, he got quiet. He was just angry quiet working on that boat because there's no fish. Just like, just slamming stuff around. Piece of crap boat. How long has this rudder been loose like this, man? And at the end of it, he got real calm, probably got a little spiritual. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Let's wash our stuff, guys. We're going to get it next day. We'll get it tomorrow, guys. And they go and they wash out their nets. You understand that the humility didn't even hit then. There's some part of them that says, I'll make it up tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll do this. God will humble you in these little ways, and they stop working after a while. This is the craziness of pride. Is the first time that happened to Peter. Believe me, the first time he went fishing, all night long he didn't catch anything. He was on it. Jesus wasn't there in the flesh, but he still was on his knees saying, God, help me. My family's going to starve. I don't know anything. But now he knows so much. In his mind, he should have caught a fish. It doesn't make any sense. And the hard part of sitting there is knowing that some idiot who is fishing for his first day and knows nothing about fishing would do at least as good as you did today. All you brought to the table was worthless. It was worthless expertise. I could catch that much fish sitting under a tree drinking Kool-Aid, not even trying to catch a fish. I can catch 0 fish. How much does 0 fish count? It counts for nothing. You think he was clocking in? Fishco USA? Cha-chink, I got paid 12 hours because I was on the boat. No, he didn't take fish to the market. There's no coin in his pocket. He burnt that day. He went out at 6 p.m. He went out on the water and he worked all night long. When was the last day you worked the whole day and you got nothing out of it? You go out and you go, oh, it's a Saturday. This lady, she hired me to do this cleanup job on her house. And all I got to do is mow the lawn and edge. And she's going to pay me $500. Woo, I'm doing it. It's a 2-hour job. And Danny goes out there and he starts, and then a rock goes right through her giant window in the front of her house. Boom, drops it. just ate that. Guess how much that window costs? $1,000. You just paid her $500 to do it and waste your Saturday. You ever had that? You come home, all of a sudden you don't feel like Lord of the Lawns anymore. You feel like steward. If you're soft enough to feel it. But a lot of times we just like, oh, everybody. Jeff Bezos has bad days. He has bad days where he doesn't, but he comes back and he makes it over time. There's such a, it's just pride. It's pride. You don't think it happens spiritually. It does. And it happened to Peter in this moment. There's this pride in him about what happened. Even he's putting his nets away. You're a loser, man. You're going home a loser. You failed, but you can't own it. And he's sitting there, and then Jesus says, can I preach on your boat? He goes, yes, master. Go ahead. Preach on my boat. And then Jesus says, can you go out into the deep water? Drop your nets in for a catch. Drop it in. And you know what he does? I'm not saying he laid it on thick. I'm not saying he was rude. He's probably very polite. He says, Master, I didn't catch any fish. There's no fish out there. But because it's you, I'm going to drop this net in the water for you. He's humoring Jesus. There ain't no fish there, bro. You're not going to catch anything. You know why? Because I didn't catch anything. And I'm a better fisherman than you. That's why. Because I know. Have you ever done it? God comes, Danny, this is what I need you to do with your business. Go, that ain't going to work. You know why? Because I'm a better businessman than you. God, I know how this works. I know that will not work. But because it's you, God, I'll do it. And then he does it. And then God's like, money. Like, and you're like, that's what happened. That's what happened with Peter. That shouldn't have worked. And then his nets are breaking full of fish. And he's loading up his boats with fish. His boats are sinking. Nobody has ever caught this much fish. And he realizes the Lord of the fish is in my boat. And I treated him like garbage a minute ago. You ever wonder why is Peter on his knees repenting right now? What did he do wrong? We try to almost imagine, oh, he must have been out drinking and whoring the night before or something. Like he must have some deep secrets in his closet or something. But we don't know that. It doesn't seem like it. Seems like he's a good, lukewarm Jew. He's just hanging out, doing his job. And he just obeyed the guy. The guy told him to do something ridiculous. He said, that's ridiculous, but I'll do it because it's you. What's wrong with any of that? In itself, nothing. What's happening? Why is he saying depart from me? He's not even repenting. He's not saying forgive me. I was a douche back there for talking to you. I humored you and you are actually humoring me. And I've been just humbled. I don't know what I'm talking about. You're Lord of the fish. What am I talking about? He could repent. He says, throw me away, God. Why would you say that? That's when you not only see the sin, but you see your inability to keep a hold of it. When you're like, I couldn't see what a prideful jerk I was. And I know in about 20 minutes, my ego is going to heal and I'm not going to be able to see it again. He's saying 20 minutes ago, I knew too much to submit to you. I knew too much to really give you the time of day. I was Lord of the fish. And I know in about 30 minutes from now, my ego is going to wake up. You knocked it out. You just got KO'd my ego, but my ego is going to wake up and it's going to start spinning the story different. And I'm going to start thinking I'm amazing again. And that means you can't be that amazing anymore, Jesus, because I'm amazing. That's going to happen again. That's what he's saying to Jesus. He says, get out of here. Because he is overwhelmed by his ego. He's overwhelmed. I'm addicted to thinking I'm better than I am. And I will do it again. It's like an alcoholic. That's what an alcoholic would say in that moment of sober reckoning. Get out of here. I will always love the bottle more than you. You deserve better than me. Leave me. Get away from me. I can't control this thing. That's what he's saying. My ego is the alcohol I can't put down. I'm going to make myself more important to me than you in my life again and again and again. And I'm not even going to realize I'm going to act like I'm doing you a favor while I'm worshiping me and insulting you in the process. That's why he's saying, depart from me. And listen what Jesus says. He says, Peter, don't be afraid. I see what you're afraid of. The fear in that moment is there's no way to fix this. The best thing I can do is go to hell in the corner with nobody watching me do it. That's the best I can do, is to throw myself away. Encourage everyone else to throw me away. So I'm not disappointing anybody. So I'm not humiliating myself. I can't fix it. Maybe I can minimize it. And Jesus says, you don't have to be afraid of this at all. What you don't realize, Peter, is you didn't know what a prideful jerk you were until I revealed it. You didn't earn this. I did this. I gave you the miracle that opened your eyes right now. And the work I'm starting right now, I'm going to complete. And all you need to do is what you just did, which is say, I don't see it, I don't get it, I don't understand it, but because you say so, I'll obey. Sometimes I might be a condescending jerk to God, but I obey. I still do it. And you understand what a difference it made. I don't think Peter deserves high marks for obeying Jesus in that situation. I don't think he was faithful. I don't think he thought he was going to catch anything. I think he was just like, okay, I guess so. And he did it, but he did it. And because he did it, God worked the miracle. And because the miracle happened, Peter was brought to a true repentance. Because the miracle happened, Peter got promoted and became a disciple that day. If this story had went another way and Jesus said, throw your nets in the fence, get the hell out of here, man. I ain't doing that. It wouldn't have happened. If the net hadn't hit the water, no fish would have swam into it. He would have never humbled himself before the Lord, and he would have never walked away from his boats and followed Jesus afterwards. And who knows, maybe that happened with 50 other guys that day. Maybe Jesus was throwing these things out all the time, and 90% of the time, people just didn't obey him. Peter didn't obey right, but he obeyed, and it exposed something in him. He was horrified. Jesus was overjoyed. And what was Jesus saying to him? Don't be afraid of that, Peter. I got this. I wasn't uncovering this to say you need to figure out how to save yourself. I was uncovering this because I need your consent in this moment. I need you to walk away from that life and start following me. I'm not afraid of your ego. I'm not afraid of the pride swallowing you up. I'm afraid that you're going to start disobeying me. If you can do what you just did and say, God, I don't get it. I don't believe in it. It doesn't make sense to me. But at your word, Lord, I obey. God will work the miracles that'll humble you the rest of the way. And that's what happens with Peter in this passage, in this moment. He surrenders to Jesus, and that surrender begets surrender on a deeper level. He drops his nets and he follows Jesus, and he becomes a disciple. Now we fast forward a little bit. We'll be looking at Matthew 14 in just a second here. Let me get a sip of this. Now we fast forward a little bit. What's happened to Peter since he has left his boat and his nets and his job and went and followed Jesus? Well, a lot. Jesus has trained him up. He's actually got promoted again. He's an apostle now, one of 12 emissaries of the Messiah. This is big stuff. And he's gone out 2 by 2, and he's preached the gospel all on his own, just him and another guy out there preaching the gospel in towns and villages. He's preached the gospel like you've never preached it. He's had people fall down and demons come screaming out of them, and lepers, their skin peels off and their beautiful pink skin, which bam, healed this guy, cast out this demon, heal this person. And they're overwhelmed by their success. And what happens with Peter and the rest of the disciples? They sit around and what do they argue? Who of us is the greatest? What is that? We're drinking that ego Kool-Aid again is what's going on. That's what's happening. It's rebuilding itself. Because there's still fear underneath this. He's still running from the stick. And then what do you do when you run from the stick? You try to pad your portfolio. You try to build up this swollen idea of who you are to cover up that fear. Instead of really growing, you're doing this. Peter didn't have to do anything. Jesus said, go 2 by 2. Say this when you get to the village. If this happens, do this. If this happens, do that. And That's what happened. He's doing the same thing he's been doing the whole time. He's being a steward. God has made him a steward of souls instead of a steward of the sea, made her a fisher of men. But he wants the same thing from Peter. I tell you what to do, you do it. Because it's me, you obey. That's it. But there's some part of Peter's brain that's the same as all of ours where he starts thinking, I think I'm getting better at this. I think I'm getting some technique here. I think the way I'm preaching is better. And I think I'm getting better. I prayed for like 50 people yesterday. I think I'm getting better at praying for people. I'm cutting through the junk. I'm getting to the point. I'm leaning on God better. I'm depending on the Spirit more. I'm being more successful in all these areas. This is great. And as his expertise grows, he becomes Lord of the apostles. He starts growing. I am really something here, guys. I really got this. And we have this moment that we're going to look at right here. Matthew 14. Now it says, Jesus heard about John. John the Baptist just got his head cut off. And so Jesus withdrew by a boat privately to a solitary shore. But the crowds found out about it, and they followed him on foot from the towns. And when he stepped ashore and he saw the large crowd, he had compassion upon them, and he healed their sick. So he's taken the disciples on a little retreat because their close friend in ministry, John the Baptist, just got murdered. This would have shaken Peter and the other disciples. This guy was like Jesus Jr., right? He's vice president of their ministry, essentially. A lot of them started out under John the Baptist. John the Baptist was thrown in prison. It shook everyone. It shook John the Baptist. He's like, I'm not supposed to be in prison. I'm the Elijah who was to come. He wonders whether, like, are you the one? Are you the Messiah? I'm confused. This isn't supposed to happen. And Jesus reassures him. And he speaks very highly of John the Baptist, but we know it was in people's mind. Is John the Baptist, wavering? And then now John the Baptist's head got chopped off. Probably the disciples said, any minute now, Jesus, he's going to conquer the Romans. He's going to lead us into glory, millennial kingdom, messianic kingdom. At some point, he's going in this prison to liberate his prophet. He's going to do that. Now John the Baptist's head has been chopped off. These guys are thrown. It's one thing to be super successful in your business. You're like, man, I'm catching fish all the time. But then when somebody caught fish over there gets his head chopped off for it, all of a sudden you go, maybe I'm not that good. Maybe we're in the wrong business. They're killing fishermen now, man. Let's switch this business out. Danny would love being a landscaper, but if all of a sudden landscapers start getting shot and socked in every other day, you go, wait a minute. I know that dude that just got shot. That was 2 blocks from where I'm going to do the lawn on Monday. You would start thinking about it different, wouldn't you? And that's what's going on with them. So he says, let's take a little evening away. Let's go a day away. So they go out to this solitary place and the crowds are already there. And Jesus sees all the lepers and the kids with crutches and he has compassion and he starts healing them. Now, I can almost guarantee we eventually find out there's over 5,000 men in this crowd, plus women and children. Most of those men are married, so you automatically go into 10,000 right there. Plus kids. There weren't a lot of single kids back then, like only child. That didn't happen a lot. So we're talking lots. We're talking 6,000, 7,000 people easily right there. A lot of them are sick. Jesus is healing them. I guarantee you those apostles are working the crowd praying for people to get healed too. Demons are coming out. People are getting healed. They do it all day long. And then it says this, evening came and the disciples came to him, said, this is a desolate place. This place is remote. And the hour is already late. Dismiss the crowds that they might go to the villages and buy themselves food. Jesus says they don't need to go away. You feed them. They answered, but we have only 5 loaves of bread, 2 fish. Bring it to me, he says. And then he directed the crowds to sit down on the grass, and he took the bread and the fish and he broke it. Looking up to heaven, he spoke a blessing and he gave it to the disciples to give to the people. And all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken leftover pieces. About 5,000 men were fed besides the women and the children. So that's a feeding of the 5,000. Then it says, immediately afterward, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side of the lake, while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed them, he went up on the mountain and he prayed by himself. Evening came, and he was there alone, and the boat was already far from land, and it was buffeted by waves because the wind was against it. During the fourth watch of the night, so that's between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., they left that evening when the sun was going down. It's like 4 or 5 miles across this thing. You could paddle it in like an hour easily, even if the wind was against you. They're in the middle of this thing in a storm. It's between 3 and 6 a.m. the next morning. They're still there. When the disciples saw him, he was walking on the sea. They were terrified. It's a ghost, they cried out in fear. And he spoke up at once, take courage, it is me. Do not be afraid. And Peter said, Lord, if it is you, command me to come out onto you on the water. Come, said Jesus. And Peter went forth out of the boat. He walked on water, heading towards Jesus. But when he saw the violence of the wind, he was afraid, and he began to sink into the water, and he cried out, Lord, save me. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand. He took hold of Peter. He said, Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? And they climbed back into the boat, and the wind immediately died down, and those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, Truly, you are the Son of God. Now, this is a very similar event. It just takes place in two pieces. Peter thinks he's Lord of the disciples, right? He's doing really good. He literally thinks he's the greatest disciple, Lord of the disciples. I'm really doing a lot better than you guys with Jesus. I'm closer to Jesus than the rest of you. I'm more intimate with Jesus than you. I'm doing better ministry than you. He really thinks he's doing a great job. And then they do this ministry all day long, praying for the 5,000. At the end of it, Peter and the guys come to Jesus and say, Jesus, we all got together. We've been doing this ministry for about a couple months now. In our opinion, they're pretty prayed out, and they got to go and get something to eat. It's time. Switch gears. They need to be physically taken care of. Send them out to get something to eat. And Jesus just hits them back. They don't need to go anywhere. You need to feed them. And in the synoptics, I don't read all the synoptics side by side here, but we could, and it would fill in a lot of interesting details. One of the details is they're saying, Jesus, we can't feed him. We can't feed all these people. If we saved up for the rest of our lives, we couldn't afford a bite of bread for each of the people here. And he says, well, what do you have? Yeah, we got this little boy's lunch. 5 dinner rolls and 2 smoked mackerel. It's not enough for all these people. It's not. You know what's really going on? They're sitting there thinking, this is all we have to eat. We get rid of these people. We still got 12 grown men plus Jesus, and we got 5 dinner rolls and 2 little smoked fish. We're going to have to give most of it to Jesus, right? And what's going to be left for us? They're sitting there squabbling over it. And Jesus is like, well, give me what you got. We'll feed them with that. Believe me, if it was anyone other than Jesus, they wouldn't have gave them the lunch. They would have said, get out of here. You're not feeding. You're going to feed 2 dudes. And then we're not going to have anything. But because it was Jesus, Peter could have almost said it. Lord, I've been feeding people for my whole life. I've been watching people eat. This ain't going to feed that. I know what I'm talking about. This is a waste. But because it's you, here you go. He doesn't believe anything's going to happen, but he gave him the thing he asked him to give him. It was kind of precious to him, to be real. He's like, I get 1/12 of this food. But he gave it to him. And Jesus prayed over it. And then he said, hand it out. And they handed out. Can you imagine being in this situation? This is a crazy situation. Because we're told later on they didn't understand it. Later on, it says they were trembling and astounded when Jesus gets on the boat. In the synoptic, I think it's in John's reading. They get in the boat and the storm dies down. And it says they were astonished. And it says it like in 5 different ways, in that they were astonished, beside themselves, terrified, and amazed. There's like 5 different ways of saying it in the Greek. And they just keep saying it. It's just saying they were like, no, like they couldn't handle it. And then it said, because they had not put together the lesson of the loaves, because their hearts were hardened. It ties it back to this thing that happened right before it. They didn't understand what Jesus was trying to teach them here. Jesus feeds 5,000 men, plus the women, plus the children. So you imagine, you're looking at one plate with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish on it. And there's 12 dudes, 13 plus, if you're counting Jesus, they're going to eat it. And then Jesus takes it, hands it out. Like easily 7,000 people there, and they eat and they eat and they eat until they're all laying there burping. And you eat, and all the disciples eat, and you eat until you're burping. You got fish grease all over your beard, and oh God, oh, I ate. And you ate so much. And then Jesus says, don't let anything be put to waste. Go out there. You can always tell they're not getting it. Go pick up the leftovers. And there's 12 basketfuls. 12 basketfuls of leftovers. That means every guy has to carry a basket full of leftovers they were all standing around one plate that was barely full of food a half an hour ago saying, I hope I get some of that. Now you're burping full of fish and you're carrying a basket of leftovers, and everybody around you's got a basket of leftovers. And yet something didn't click. Peter didn't throw the basket on the ground and fall at Jesus' feet and say, depart from me, Lord, I'm a sinful man. He didn't go like, man, I thought I was Lord of ministry. I thought I was the guy. I humored you. I was like, well, 12th of this isn't even worth fighting about. Here you go, Jesus. You're not going to be able to do anything with that. He thought he knew. The ego is there. But this time it didn't even hit him. It didn't really hit any of them. And what does Jesus do? Immediately he says, get in the boat. Go to the other side. I'll talk to you later. He puts them into the boat. Go to the other side of the lake. And he dismisses the crowd. Why does he do that? You know what Peter had more human pride in than even being a minister? Being a fisherman. Spent many years apprenticing for that. He just spent the last few months being an apostle. You got ego going down for miles on being a fisherman. And he doesn't even have to fish. He's just got to get the boat from one side of the lake to the other side. A retarded child could do this. Anybody could do this. And he gets in the boat, and he's Peter. He's like, okay, guys. All right, you're going to handle the rudder. You're going to be paddle number 1. You're going to be paddle number 2. He starts leading these guys across the water. And then they can't get across. I don't think you understand. Like, they can't get across the lake. It's 4 miles across. They left when the sun was going down. It's 3 or 4 in the morning. They're still on the water, just paddling. They can't get across. You would feel like you're taking stupid pills. I can't. You believe 12 dudes on a boat? Believe me, everybody's had a turn of like, I know what we're doing wrong. You're doing this wrong. And like, everybody's trying to like, I know, let me do the rudder. Okay. You got to cut this way. And then you got to cut that way. And then you got to zigzag it when the wind's like this. And everybody's tried. Everybody's done their thing. And then they had the 2 hours of just angry, sweaty rowing. Just, I won't give up. They've just ground away. What is God doing? He's bringing it down. You are not Lord of anything. You're not in control. Yeah, you have expertise. Yeah, you know a lot more about rowing a boat than most guys do. You know more about fishing. You know about ministry. But without me, you can do nothing. You keep thinking that you're bringing something. You are a steward. Your only gift is that you can do what I say just because I say it. They row and they row and they row. And then this is another interesting thing in the synoptic. In the synoptic reading, it says Jesus was just going to walk by him. That's what it says. So think about the lesson that was happening there. Was Jesus was going to wait. They left at like, let's be nice. Let's say the evening was like 8 o'clock. It's late in summer, So it's like 8 o'clock till 4 in the morning. They've been on a boat trying to get across this thing. And Jesus is going to be like, well, 4 o'clock, I'm going to take the next 15 minutes to walk it. And he walks across the water. He's just going to walk right by him. You get the message that you were just like, it's only been 8 hours, guys. Come on, dig deep. And then Jesus just goes strolling by you. Would you get the message? Would you get the message that you're not Lord of the boat, that you're not Lord of the sea, that you're not Lord of ministry, you're not Lord of anything? He is. But they don't. He goes walking by and they are terrified. They think there's a ghost. And when Jesus says, it's me, how does Peter respond? Call your favorite out in the water. Call me out, God. I'm ready. Put me in, coach. I'm such a success today. I just need to cap this off. You know what the interesting thing in Mark's gospel, which is Peter's gospel, he doesn't tell this part of the story. He leaves this whole part out. He talks about Jesus walking up, getting in the boat, and them getting there, but he doesn't show this part off. Other people talk about it because they see it as some level of success. Peter walked on water for a moment. Peter didn't feel that way about it. He didn't think this was a moment of rousing success. This is a moment when he stepped out. After all this ego, he still got out of this boat to prove something. And then when he began to sink and Jesus saved him, Jesus said, "You of little faith, why did you doubt me?" Believe me, he wasn't thinking about running the champion circle. Ooh, I did it. I did it for 2 minutes. I walked on the water longer than any of you losers. I am the greatest disciple. It's a shoo-in. Just those words of Jesus ringing in his ears. Just ringing there. I think it's weird that nobody ever thinks about answering that question. We don't think that Peter tried to answer the question? You of little faith, why did you doubt me, Peter? Why did you doubt me? He would have had to try to answer. We never answer. We go, oh, it's a hypothetical. Yeah, Jesus just said that. It's just a sting, just putting the burn on it a little bit. Just teaching. No, Jesus is asking a real question. He's saying, you are a steward. You will obey because I tell you to. It's simple. It's pure. I say, come out on the water. You come out on the water because I told you to. And in the first moment of doing it, you were a little bit humbled. But once you started walking, you started thinking, what? I am the greatest disciple. I am the greatest disciple. Look at me now, guys. And what happens when it's about you? You can fail. All of a sudden, you look at the wind and the waves and you go, I have to be able to handle this. It's the same thing in your business. When you walk out of the boat, when God just said, go do it, go be a father, go be a husband, you were afraid enough that you were just like, I don't know what to do, but when you tell me to do something, I'll do it. And that's all you were doing. It was simple. It was pure. It was beautiful. And God worked miracles. But then you started getting some expertise and you thought you were doing most of it. So then it's actually on you when you look at the future and go, the winds are blowing and the economics are shifting. And you're not this humble servant who's like, it's not about that. All I've ever brought to this is I'm a steward and Jesus speaks and I obey because I know who speaks. It's you, Jesus. Of course I'll do it. The difference between greatness and proficiency in being a steward is, do I really believe him when I obey? Bare minimum is, I don't get it, but okay. Peter's problem in that moment was the ego. It was the fear. It was all the other things that came creeping into it. Jesus said this was just supposed to be about trust. It was just, I asked you to do something. You trust me and you do it. It's very, very simple. The motives that are in play in this moment. What's interesting is after this, they go on and they repeat this whole lesson again. First, Jesus has this big debate. He has this big argument with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And then afterwards, they go out and there's 4,000 dudes that are hungry this time. And the same exact thing happens all over again. Same exact thing. They say, Jesus, we got to go send these people home to eat. He says, you need to feed these people. They go, it's not possible. He just did it. He just did it. But they're like, it can't be done. He's like, I fed more people last time. There's 1,000 more people last time. No, they can't be fed. What do you got? 7 loaves of bread and a couple of fish. That's more food than you gave me last time. To feed less people this time. They still didn't believe. There was just this, they couldn't see past it. So he does the same exact miracle. They all eat, big full, greasy stomachs full of fish. And he says, go collect the baskets. This time, There's one basket for every loaf of bread they had. It's a direct visual thing. Loaf of bread, entire basket of leftovers. Everybody ate. And they get back in the boats again. And they have left the leftovers, which is crazy. Except you think, I don't want to look at this. It's making me think weird things. I'm going to set this down. They put it down. They forgot it. They get in the boat. And he says, be on your lookout for what? The yeast of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And they go, it's because we forgot all the bread. We forgot the bread on the dock. He's talking about the bread. He's like, are you what? And he gets, like, this is one of those times where you can feel the frustration of the Lord. How long am I going to have to put up with you? Are you so dull spiritually that you don't know what I'm talking about right now? I'm talking about the yeast of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And if you read it in context, it says, this is the narration, right? The Holy Spirit basically saying this. It says, oh, they understood it's the teachings of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. You know what the problem with that is? They didn't have any teachings in common. That's the problem with that passage, if you're trying to understand it, is there was not really anything that the scribes and the Pharisees really had in common. There's only one thing that they did in common. You know what that was? Was they would write down what they thought about the scripture as if it was of equal importance to the scripture. They'd go, I understand. I have spent years studying the Bible and I understand it better than I did in the beginning, and I understand it better than you because I'm a scribe and I'm a Pharisee. It was the pride of what? Expertise. I've spent so much time in the Bible. I've spent so much time in our faith that I'm good at it. And he says, there's the yeast. You see the pride? Do you see the pride? They think that they add something to my Bible when they read it. They think, oh, there's reading John 8 by yourself, and then there's reading John 8 when I'm there to talk to you about it. And it's so much better when I'm there. That's the yeast. That's what he's talking about. He's saying you keep coming into this situation and saying, I'm not a steward. I'm bringing so much more to the table than this. And God is consistently saying to Peter and to everyone here, no, that's not what you're here for. I'm leading you into something much deeper and much more blessed than this, but your part, your key to open it up is so much simpler than all that. Why can't we hear that? What does Jesus keep saying? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Because he can see that's at the heart of it. These people are terrified. They're living on the threshold of failure all the time. So they're constantly in fear. And when you're constantly in fear, eventually you get numb and then you get addicted to something. You almost guarantee it. Someone's struggling with addiction, doesn't matter what it is. You peel the onion there, and they're going to be talking about, I don't really care, I'm numb, I'm apathetic about everything. Under that is just miles of stress, miles of fear about everything. And out of that, percolating out of the desire for escape. And I don't care what else you're addicted to. Could be booze, could be porn, could be 100 other things. I guarantee you're addicted to ego too. It's the devil never fails, because if he sows a little, there's nothing that'll screw you up more than throwing a little ego in there. It's the one thing that'll keep God. Yeah, just believe you're God a little bit in the middle of all that failure. Just believe you're God a little bit. That's really going to keep Jesus out of there, because Jesus isn't going to come around and be co-God with you. He's not going to share his glory. He's going to have to say to you, Robert, you got to get off the throne if you want me to sit there. That's going to happen. And if it's all tied up in your fear, if it's all wrapped up in that, you just won't do it. Peter was never going to be stopped. He was never going to stop being a fisherman until God humbled him in that moment. He needed that. As much as he was terrified of it, there were probably a lot of days where he thought, man, I have to catch at least this much fish today. I have to hit 15 units. I have to. How many times? And his nightmare was to get so set back, I didn't get the check. we lost the client, we lost the job, we lost this thing. And God had to take him there to break him, to break the pride, to break the ego, say, you're still in my hand, son. You're still in my hand. I don't know what you think you're playing this fear game and that you're the one saving you. You're not the one saving you. And I don't want you to live this way at all anyway. Jesus repeats this entire lesson with the 5,000, or excuse me, the 4,000. And he leads them forward. This stuff still happens. It's not like this solved everything at that moment. Like Peter has breakthroughs in the midst of this. He's having more breakthroughs than the others. You can even say there's a little bit of evidence that he's doing better than the rest of the apostles. That's not the point, though. That's not why he's trying to get that title. You shouldn't even be thinking about that stuff. Where this leads to, if we're looking at it, is what? That moment when he denies Jesus 3 times. And what does he do? What does he do leading up into that moment? Jesus is like washing feet. He's trying to teach humility here. He's trying to do it. This is what it's about. And Peter says, don't wash my feet. I'm too, like, it's almost like right here. It's right this moment on this painting right here. No, don't do that. Why? Because he's full of yeast. That's the yeast of the Pharisees saying, Jesus, I know better. You shouldn't be washing my feet. Jesus, I know better. You shouldn't go to the cross and die. What does Jesus say? You are Satan standing in my way. You're a stumbling block. Your mind is not set on the things of God. It's the things of men. It's that yeast that says, God, stop, Jesus, stop. I know what. And then when Jesus says, I'm going to tell you the truth, you're all going to be scattered. You're all going to leave me. And then what does Peter say? I'm ready to die for you. Yeast. Just yeast coming out of his pores, man. He can't help himself. He's just puffy with it. And Jesus says, what happens when the crow crows tomorrow and you've denied me 3 times? Peter isn't ready for any of this stuff. He has a completely twisted idea of who he is. He's trying to motivate himself. He thinks he's motivating himself super spiritual, right? I love Jesus. I'm ready to die as a martyr. But in reality, he's still motivated by fear. He's too good for the little crown that God wants him to chase. He's too good for the small things that God's trying to plug him into. I'm too spiritually great. But reality, he's just locking himself in this place. And what happens when you run from fear in everything? Then a little girl can come up and say, but you have a Galilean accent. Oh, I swear to God, I don't know Jesus. It happened like that. And it's because it had been happening like that for his entire life. He's just been disguising it as something else. But he'd been running from that switch for a long time. This was just another version. He'd been a slave to that thing for so long. For so long. You know what's amazing about that moment? Is Peter was like, I'm ready to die as a martyr. And he doesn't. Like, he's like, I'm terrified. I don't want to die. Leave me alone. Kill somebody else, you know? And he abandons Jesus, and Jesus is murdered, dies on the cross. I'm sure Peter is gutted beyond words. I'm horrible. I told him, depart from me. You should have never went with me. And then Jesus rises from the dead. And Peter is the first one. It says he outran John. He went into the empty tomb first. Who was there? Nobody. He ran expecting to see Jesus. Did he see Jesus first? He didn't. Mary Magdalene saw Jesus first. And then later on, Jesus appears to the 2 on the road to Emmaus. Come back and tell Peter about it. Then he appears to the 11. But who's dominating that conversation? Thomas. They're talking about Thomas. There's a bunch of different events there. They're talking about that, and then he comes back, and then it's all about Thomas because Thomas is there the second time. In none of these conversations is Peter central. You almost feel like Peter's standing at the back of the room, right? Then maybe there's a little bit of hope when he ran to the tomb that he would be the first to see Jesus, and then when Jesus chose to appear to others, he just takes it right to heart. I'm out, man. I screwed this thing up. And after the last time that Jesus appears to him, he goes home. They don't really talk about it a lot, but all of a sudden he goes from Jerusalem back to the Sea of Galilee. All he says to his friends is, I'm going to go fishing. Now, as we go on, he wants to go throw his spinner in their knee. No, he goes out on, he's real fit. They're not catching fish for dinner. He's catching enough fish to go to the market and pay rent. He's done. He's done. I've screwed the pooch. I'm out. He knows that. He's on the boat. That's what he's doing. He's going back to his old life. And he's fishing, and what happens? All night long, he can't catch a fish. Can you imagine the lengths that God's going to pop the pride bubble on this guy? He goes back and he's like, nope, I'm not going to let you catch a dang thing. And he catches nothing all night long. That's another way you know that they were fishing commercial, because you don't do that. You give up after a couple hours. You go home, you pop open a beer, put on the game. You don't sit there and fish until 6 a.m. and watch the sun come up. You're fishing for a living, man. We need this fish. And he's sitting there on that boat. And then Jesus shows up on the shore waving. Hey, did you catch anything? Did you catch anything? No, we caught nothing. Why don't you throw your net off the other side of the boat? Right then, Peter's like, wait a minute. I think this has happened to me before. This sounds suspiciously familiar. They throw the net on the other side, fills with fish. The boat is instantly going down. So full of fish. Insane amount of fish, right? And Peter jumps out of the boat to swim to Jesus. He's having that same moment. That same humbling moment, but it hits him completely different. He's not swimming to Jesus to say, depart from me, I'm a sinful man. But it's from the same place. It's from the same humility. When God steps in and says, you thought you were so important to this. All I need you to do is do what I tell you to do. Your fear will make you run from my voice. Your fear will make you disobey when I speak. All you have to do, it's such a simple thing. It's not that there isn't room for improvement, but basic competence in stewardship is this. I obey, Lord, because I know it's you. I don't believe it. I don't get it. Honestly, I don't think it's going to happen, but I will do it because you told me to. And when Peter sees it work out again, he swims to the shore. And guess what? This is the funniest part to me. He catches all these fish. He swims to the shore. And Jesus has already cooked up the meal, and it's bread and fish. It's like it's like Jesus is still getting, it's like this lesson he's trying to hit again and again. You don't need to feed yourself. I will feed you. You don't need to take care of yourself. I will take care of you. You don't need to fix your life. I will fix your life. I will feed. Like every time he's fed the 5,000, he's fed the 4,000. Now he shows up. I was dead until about 20 minutes ago. I don't got a job, no money, but I just conjured a freaking meal. And he gets to the shore. You know what the lesson is there? Peter, I don't even need the fish you're catching. I'm not sitting there saying, oh, I hope Peter catches some fish because we ought to make breakfast. He's like that. And then you know what he does? This is the crazy part. He goes, Peter, get some of the fish you caught. We'll throw them on. I want you to be part of this. I want your participation. But it's not some heavy yoke of responsibility that's here to crush you. Stewardship is the light and easy yoke that Jesus carries with the Father. He goes, it's not my job to understand the Father. It's not my job to plan and read, like to build this whole. My job is to love my Father, to trust him, and to obey what he tells me. And that's your job. That's the only job that Jesus has given you to do. That's it. When I hear you speak, I'll obey. I'll be open to your voice. You're going to be leading me into a place where I hear more and more, where my heart's freer and freer to hear. That's what it's all about. All night, no fish. Jesus brings this incredible catch of fish. And then he says, bring your fish too. Beautiful. And then he reinstates Peter. We call it the reinstatement. But it's really interesting. Peter doesn't say, depart from me. He's not in that place. He comes to the Lord, and the Lord says, let's go for a walk, Peter. And walk along the beach. And he says, do you love me? Do you love me, Peter? And you have to, that's like, the great thing about it is Jesus just cuts through all this stuff, because that's the heart. The heart of denying someone is, do I hate them? Do I really, how could I love him and wash my hands of him to save my own skin? That's the heart of the issue. And Jesus doesn't go, so about denying me the other day. He doesn't, he cuts right to the question that Peter doesn't even know is in his heart, really. He just opens it up. Do you love me? He says, yes, Lord, I love you. And he says the same thing. Like, we don't understand, but it's literally the same phrase over and over again. We phrase it a little differently in the translation for each one, so it's not so monotonous. But it's the same exact answer. He uses a diminutive of sheep, so we usually translate it lambs, but it just means sheep. And he uses sheep the other two times, and he says the same thing: feed, care for. It's the same word. He's saying the actual word is pasture my sheep. Be a pastor. What is he doing right here? He's saying, do you love me, Peter? I love you, Lord. That's why I ran out. I'm so ashamed of what I did. I ran back here because you deserve better than me. And he says, if you love me, then you'll do the job I gave you. If you love me, you'll do the thing I asked you to do because I asked you to do it. Not because you think you're going to do a good job. Not because you think it's possible to feed 5,000. Not because you think it's possible to catch the fish. Not because you think you're going to be good at the thing I'm asking you to do. You will do it simply because of who is asking you to. Jesus does one thing over and over again in that. He takes two realities. You love me, and I've called you to take care of my kids. And he just smashes them together and says, if one's true, you have to do the other one. You have to. And after he does this, what does he say? Then follow me. What a simple thing. Follow me. And when I looked it up in the original. It's interesting because follow me in the Greek is actually, it's like join me on my path is what it means. It's very focused on join me in this thing that we're doing, moving forward in this whole thing. It's like teammates. We're becoming one on this path. I am the path. Join me on the path. Become one with the path. And that's what he says. Come. Join me. Follow me. Continue to obey me. He goes, well, what about John? What about John? And Jesus says, never mind about him. Like, honestly, you're supposed to love your neighbor and everything, but that's not what you're asking. You're asking as if that has something to do with your job. It doesn't. Jesus says, what if I want him to stay alive till I return? What does that make to you? You need to follow me. That's where your focus needs to be. What is Jesus asking me to do? And I need to do it. And it's just, that's what ego would say. Well, what about that guy? I got to do better than him, or I'm garbage. See, in discipleship, we don't get faster or smarter or stronger or better or more experienced even. Discipleship is we just learn to trust more. It's the only thing Jesus ever comments on. Oh, you of little faith, where's your faith? Why did you doubt? Growth isn't based on your experience, but on your current intimacy. See, even that we think, oh, I spent all these years getting close to Jesus. That doesn't mean a thing if you're not close to him right now. It doesn't. It's literally, where are you with your intimacy with Jesus right now? That's the level you're going to be able to trust him when he speaks to you. And how do you stay close to Jesus? Obey what he's telling you to do. It's that simple. As if you wake up, like right now, you can wake up from your slumber and say, Jesus, what are you asking of me today? And he'll say something. And the deeper you are in your flesh, the more you're in the pattern of this world, the more you'll be like, that doesn't make any sense. It's just, a lot of times it's not even that it's risky or crazy or impossible. It just doesn't seem like, why would I even do that? Like, what is the point of that? But if we continue to just do that, it's such a basic thing. Just obey the Lord. And the small things he's asking you to do, look for them and obey him and trust him to show you more things. And he will. If you honor what he's giving you, he will give you more. And all of a sudden, you'll find yourself shifting into the Spirit and seeing even more. And in the intimacy of that, your stewardship is better. It's not even like, oh, I learned these 5 secrets, or I really got into John one year and I decoded it, bro. Like no one's decoded the Gospel of John before. I decoded it. Now I know all the secrets. And you can have all that and be a dead Pharisee. The only thing that counts is not the yeast you're putting into the dough. It ain't that. What counts at the end of the day is, do you obey because he speaks? And there are going to be days when you are like Peter and you just say, God, yeah, technically I obeyed, but man, all it really did was allow you to open the door to show me how much I suck. And I am so despairing of everything because I thought I was so much better than I am. And we're missing the point. I don't know, it might hurt, you build the throne halfway to heaven and God knocks you off your high horse. I'm sure there's some bruises when Peter hit the road to Damascus. I'm sure it happens. But there's nothing shameful about being at the feet of Jesus. There's actually something glorious there. And when you get into the heart of worship, you don't want to be anywhere else. You're not mourning the false glory you lost. You're chasing that position of submission in front of him. That's what you're after in your heart. No disciple can trust Jesus at a greater level than his intimacy allows. And that's not a fruit of experience. That's a fruit of faith. It is a fruit of trust. It is a fruit of putting yourself out there, moving your chips into the center of the table. Now we have to say why. Why do we do this? This is something that is stretching and is scary, and there's reasons why we run from the things we're afraid of. That makes sense. Most of us are like, yeah, that I didn't have to meditate on my fear. Maybe you did, but you didn't have to. Your fears come, they present themselves to you. They whisper in your ear in the night. They hook into your heart. But if you're going to set your heart on a prize, you got to let God sell it to you a little bit. You got to let him point it out to you. You got to let your heart fall in love with the thing that he's speaking of. The next thing. Sometimes we're so heavenly minded, we're of no earthly use, or whatever the expression is. Abraham had land and children. And I'm not saying these things can't be idols. Of course they can. Abraham had to offer up his son at some point for that very reason. He wasn't given fullness of possession of the land because that probably would have went too far too. But there were these blessings that were offered. Land, children, this sort of spiritual backup that God is going to bless the people who bless you. He's going to curse the ones who curse you. And then this even bigger idea, it's almost too big from the grass, that all the people shall be blessed through you. He promises this stuff to Abraham. And this is Abraham's motivation. That's why he's pursuing the Lord until he grows beyond it. And there might be a bunch of things that God's speaking to you about. Maybe he's talking to you about your marriage. Maybe he's talking about your kids, your vocation, your ministry, your calling, having a purpose, being a blessing. There's a million things that you could easily look down at and say it's a small thing. It's also a crown. And if you possessed it, you could cast it at the feet of Jesus and have a more weighty worship and submission to him. Those things are, in some ways, it's kind of like when someone's trying to work on their marriage and they'll do a date night, you know? It's something that forces you and your spouse together, and you're either going to be very aware of what's wrong or you're going to be aware of what's turning around. You go on a date night and things are bad, you just got nothing to say to this person. Or you talk about your kids all night because you don't have anything else to say to each other. Date nights are uncomfortable because they're either going to expose what's wrong or they're going to expose what's right, and it's going to force you in a situation where you have to resolve it or you have to run away. And these kinds of crowns are very similar. They should be our motivation. Just like in a marriage, you're motivated, let's get to date night. But sometimes it's what you're running from. The very thing that God wants to set before you is what you're running from. You don't want to talk to God about your marriage. You don't want to talk to God about your kids. You don't want to talk to God about your business. It's your crown, but you want to hide from it. It's too heavy for you. I've waited too long. I've hesitated on something. I've allowed a worm of fear to root into this thing. And again, God's going to come into the midst of that situation and say that you're a steward. Being a husband is being a steward. Being a business owner is being a steward. Being a father is being a steward. Being a minister is being a steward. The only thing I need you to do is to obey me. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to believe it most of the time. I know that's almost sacrilegious to say, but most of the time we don't really believe God is going to do. Even when we're taught, I hold it in faith, he's going to get us to this dollar, you know. And then it happens and you're shocked, right? Oh, I can't believe it. Well, you're just talking faith, but you wasn't real, right? It was a show. What's better? You're honest about not having faith or you're putting on the show, right? It's better to be honest. What God needs is for you to step up to the plate. And the thing fear is going to do is say, plug your ears and ignore what God's saying to you. It's going to say, you already washed your nets. Do you really want to throw the water into the deep end? And the only thing you're going to catch is more seagrass, and you're going to have to wash your nets a second time and go through that humiliation. Just go home. Don't make that phone call God's asking you to make. Don't talk to that person God's telling you to talk to. Ignore the whisper. Hide from your problems. Escape. I got a bunch of things here that we could go through that are all potential blessings. And it's real interesting. I was praying about some of it. It's so individual what God might be touching you on. But it even goes to things like the land and progeny and blessing. Those are rolled into the new covenant. They're not gone. They're part of what we're promised. The law written upon your gut and in your heart, that you shall know God directly. The forgiveness of your sins, that you would be cleansed of all filth and idolatry, that we as a people would be gathered up from all the nations of the world, that our heart of stone would be exchanged for a new heart, a new spirit, that we'd be given God's spirit, that we would be caused to walk according to his ways, according to his righteousness. Those are all Old Testament recorded promises about the New Testament. That's Jeremiah 31 and Ezekiel 36. Even the blessings of Abraham, even the material ones, are connected in. Seek my kingdom and its righteousness, and all these things will be added on to you. It also says daily bread in the prayer. What we don't understand is God has promised to take care of us and to bless us in every way that's actually a blessing. Now, great riches isn't usually a blessing. It isn't. In fact, it's very dangerous if we don't carry it right. And there's a bunch of other things besides, but sometimes we have an attitude where it's like God is going to strip us naked and leave us on the streets, and then we're going to be martyred, and this is God's will to bring glory to his kingdom. That's not really true. God's glory is in your life well lived, and that maybe it's in a death well died as well. That's part of the journey, and there are crosses and there are hardships and there are these things that we are going to be called to walk through in our life. But where Jesus set the mark with daily bread was, God, don't give me so much that it corrupts me, but don't give me so little that I'm in desperation and fear. Give me my daily bread. He's looking to bring you into the best thing. The way, I forget, what is it, James or Jude says it is, may you prosper in all things as you prosper in your soul. So to say, as let you have all the blessings that would help to bless your soul, and nothing beyond that. Don't have so much money that it curses you. Don't have so much possession that it curses you. And there are people that are out there, the millionaires and running, 40 businesses and doing all that. And I give a lot to the church, so it balances. I don't believe that. That doesn't make sense to me. You're filthy rich. You're filthy. That's part of it. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that there are some times where God's giving you a very tangible blessing. I'm going to give you this land. I have a dream for more land. I got a certain kind of house set up for you. And there might be things that are very tangible in God's promise. He's not going to let you make it an idol, and he might have you give it away when it's done. Build up this business, give it away. There are going to be things like that because he doesn't want you to idolize the crown. But most of us, it's just not real to sit there and say, I'm dreaming about being a disembodied spirit in heaven, worshiping before the throne. We're just not close enough to God in the moment to be there. Sometimes in worship, I'm there. I'm ready. That's what I want more than anything else, to be a pillar in his temple throughout all time. But most of the time, there is a carrot on the stick that God is trying to turn our heart towards. And it's as deep as we're deep, which is sometimes a little humbling to accept what God is going to bring out to you. It may be something as simple as that. God is trying to set our hearts on his desires, and they are desires that we are built for from the bottom up. And we are earthy people. Sometimes our eyes have not been lifted up high enough to have any connection with the higher blessings. And he's going to start at the thing that makes you come alive when he's talking to you. And there's probably fear infested with it. You might be pulling away. You might be talking about the marriage you want, and you're terrified of looking at the marriage you have. It might be to raise up the kids in this incredible thing. You want to be this dad, and at the same time, you're terrified of maybe there's worms in it already. I don't know how to fix this thing. And there's going to be a leap of faith there. But there's some place where God wants to speak into your life and not have you live a life that I'm running from something all the time. Instead, have something you wake up and I have the safety net. If I fall asleep at the wheel, bum, 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 it's going to wake me up. But generally, I'm chasing something God has set before me. It may be a form of ministry. It might not even be a ministry. It might be just putting your hands to something as a craftsman. It might be working on a relationship in your life. It might be an area of spiritual growth and maturity. But again, it's going to be on a tangible level where when you deal with the fear, it excites you. Most of the time, we got to deal with the fear. Peter was excited about being an apostle, but first he was afraid of it and he wouldn't even think about it. And God had to get him over the hump with a wake up moment, with that miracle. And then he could get excited about it. That's what we need to be. And God's going to come in and humble us because we're going to start thinking we're amazing, thinking that little thing, that little crown is everything. And we're Lord of that crown. And, you see people do it all the time. There's like 100 Christians out there that have started some sort of small business, and now they're trying to mentor other business owners, and they're doing this whole thing, and you can just see the ego on it and go, I don't even doubt that God grabbed you and had you start a business. I don't even doubt that that's what God was doing. But at some point you started drinking the ego Kool-Aid on this thing, And at some point, God is going to humble you. At some point, he's going to break through and say, you're just a steward, man. There's nothing you can teach these people but listen to Jesus. That's what you can teach them. And be an example of somebody who listens to Jesus on scary things. And be somebody who walks alongside them as there's a lot we can do. But it's not some great, it always becomes this yeasty knowledge. It's like, I've understood the secret. It's always this Gnostic, I understand something that nobody else gets. And it's never that. The deeper you get with the Lord, the simpler you realize it is, the more you recognize, it doesn't really pay to go beyond what's written. God, not that God can't open it up and show you deep things from it, but for you to sit there and walk away and say, I understand the true depth of that. No, I don't. I just followed Jesus in this verse today. If I go and he leads me into the verse tomorrow, it might lead me in a completely different direction. This isn't some universal key to everything. It's not. The universal key to everything is, Lord, what are you doing? How can I join into it? What would you have me do today? What would you have me hear today? What would you have me speak today? And to get busy doing the things God's asking us to do. And God will stir your heart with a vision, with a desire, because that's sort of the hanging piece on we did a message not long ago about what's the only thing Jesus did. He woke up, he saw what his Father was doing, and he joined it. But here's the thing. You have to be motivated to do it or you won't. And fear just isn't going to motivate you very much. It's just not going to get you far enough. There has to be a crown. But with something like that, you can be so spiritually minded. Oh, I'm going to do this great thing. And just be completely disconnected from your own heart. Like none of that's bringing your heart to life. It's not real to you. It's just high-minded nonsense. If one day you get there and that's true of you, do it, and I will come and sit at your feet as a disciple and you can teach me how to do that because I want to know. But most people just aren't anywhere near that. And the only way we're ever going to get there is to show up with where God can bring us to life. And usually there's this temptation, twofold temptation of the enemy. One, he's trying to get us to shoot way over it with this overwhelming pride, to shoot over what God's trying to lead us into to the next thing. And what we end up sinking back into fear. And at the same time, what is he doing? He's sowing into that fear. On one side, he's saying, you can't do that because it's going to overwhelm you. You don't want to look at your marriage. You don't want to look at your business. You don't want to do this. It's too much. It's like Peter. We didn't really talk about this. Peter gets on the water because he's taken on a responsibility of lordship. He's responsible to keep himself on top of that water. He can't do that. So he sinks. It's not possible. If he let Jesus do it, he said, my job is to obey Jesus. Jesus told me to get out of the boat. I am getting out of the boat. This is my only job. And he lets the miracle of God be the miracle of God. He can walk on the water just easy. But the moment he's looking at the wind and the waves crashing and saying, I don't know if I can keep myself on the surface with waves like this, then what is he saying? It's my job to keep me on the surface. No, Peter, your job was to get out of the boat. You did it. This is everything God's doing now. And so often in our walk with God, it is our fear that tempts us into our most prideful position that says, well, it's all on me. It's all, and you just got to stop, time out, look at your fear and look at God and say, is this my job? And God's going to say, no, it's not. I asked you to do this. That's all your job is. You're a servant of Jesus. Your job is to do what Jesus tells you to do. That's it. It's really that simple. The yoke is incredibly light as long as you're not trying to put it on top of a yoke of lordship you're already wearing. We got to burn that yoke. We got to throw it down. And God will motivate us to do it. But again, a lot of times it's that mixture of we're living in a fearful place. We're afraid to make that real. And at the same time, we want to fantasize beyond it. And it's a perfect storm of tension to keep you from getting anywhere. I'm going to daydream about being in this high spiritual mountaintop that's completely unreal. But then when it comes to the real step, I'm going to hate it because it's too small of a beginning. And at the same time, I'm terrified of it because it's too real. And in reality, we have to have the humility. Humility saves us from both because humility says it's not too good for me. It's just right. And humility also says, and my part of it's not that big. My job is to just say yes to what Jesus is telling me to do. If you look at your marriage, you can be so high-minded, I'm trying to shoot for here. And God's like, no, I just want you to be able to have this kind of a conversation with your wife. And you can be, if you have the humility, right? You go, that sounds great. And then also when the fear comes up, how can you do that? You go, wait. Humility. I'm just a steward. I'm just going to do what Jesus tells me to do. I'm probably not aware of the problems. I probably can't even see the issues I have. But if I will do the things Jesus tells me to do, what needs to come to light will come to light. And what needs to be resolved will be resolved. Our enemy is pride because it's a lie. And our enemy is ego because it's a lie. And our enemy is fear because it's a lie. And that's how we get separated from all these things. And I think sometimes we are so busy struggling with the how-to part that we have a map for how to do what God is calling us to do. That's 30 years out. How I need to do this, how I'm going to handle funds when they come in, how I'm going to handle this when the ministry grows, how I'm going to handle that. But we don't take the time that's necessary to say, but if I disqualified myself for all the blessings of it, because I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. We have to look at it and be honest with where our hearts are at. And all we need, if our heart's not right, all we need to do is go to God and say, this is the truth. This is where my heart's at. Every day that you get up and say, God, this is my heart, and you confess it honestly, that day is not wasted. That day is exactly what it's set out, exactly the way God wants it to be set out. And it's just the hit to the ego. It's strange. It's kind of like, what is it? The coconut trap with the monkey. He reaches in the coconut, and as long as he won't let go of that thing, he can't get his hand out. And that is like pride with us. We will be miserable. We will be sitting in bed at night, sweating, staring at the ceiling, just absolutely messed up. But we will not let go of the pride that I'm an important piece of this. Like, it's all on me and it's torturing us. We can't get our hand out of the coconut. And all we need to do is humility. It's actually all about Jesus. And we'd be able to pull ourselves out of the trap. And we need to be a people that actually embraces humility, not as a stepping stone to some sort of great glorification. I mean, we're going to be glorified in Christ. There's going to be a glory there. It's not going to be ours, but it's going to be there. We're going to get the benefit. But most of the time when people are taking a path of humility in the world, it's a feint. I'm putting out this illusion. I know I'm really good on the outside, and we're not really drinking in the truth of I am small. I'm small in this, and getting comfortable there and letting that be natural. We're pretending. I'm pretending I'm not the most important person here. I'm going to take the lowest seat. I know it's not mine. And that's not true humility. True humility is saying, my part is so small. My part is so small. What God will do, maybe it'll be amazing. Maybe it'll be this huge thing that God does through me. But that's like a bush saying, I'm the burning bush. God set me on fire, and then he kept me from burning up, and then he spoke out of me. I am the most amazing bush in the world. And they'll be like, no, you were chosen for something great. But really, the other bush who grew because God told him to grow didn't do anything less or more than you. That's not what stewardship is. And it's that little hole that lets in the poison. So if I can encourage us to anything this week, it's going to be that heart to start opening the door to that idea that we're probably in a place of ego. We're probably in a place of pride. We got our hand in the trap. We think we're holding on to something good there, but it's killing us. And that actually, it's not terrible when we let go of that. It's not this horrible thing. It actually liberates us for power. It liberates us for God to use us. It liberates us to be blessed. It liberates God to do all these things when we'll take the humble position and say, my job's just to do what God's telling me to do. It's not any bigger or different than anybody. We all have the same job. Whatever I'm doing, whatever Robert's doing, whatever you're doing, we're just doing what God's telling us to do. And if we're not doing that, we're doing nothing. Apart from him, we accomplish nothing. So it's worthless to even talk about those fruits that are outside of Christ. But if we're accomplishing anything, we're bearing fruit for Christ, it is because we're doing what he's saying. And whether that's flashy to the people in the world, whether we judge it a certain way, it's neither here nor there. The heart of discipleship is that, will I do what the Lord is asking me to do? And sometimes you got to take the W when you threw the net in the water and you didn't even think it was going to work, and it did. And God hits you up, Danny, do this in your business. And you go, okay. And you don't have any faith it's going to do anything, but you do it. And then you start seeing the things come up. And yeah, it's going to break your heart. And yeah, go with it. Repent if you see pride. Repent if you see ego. Deal with the stuff that God's exposing. But recognize somebody who was disobedient would have never gotten the wake-up call. They would have never seen the problem. They wouldn't be doing the repentance you're doing now. They wouldn't be growing in the way that you're growing now. Peter doesn't read like a success story when you're reading it close up. You got to back away from his story and you go, wow, what a great man of God. But you get up close, his life looks like your life. Except, maybe possibly, you're not obeying like he was obeying. Even when it doesn't make sense. Oh, I'm just going to do it because Jesus told me to. And it'll change your life. It'll really will. I can say that I've obeyed God a lot. It hasn't, honestly, a lot of times it hasn't been in what I would call faith. It hasn't come from this absolute expectation that God's about to work this miracle, right? It's not always from that place. Sometimes it's just from this place of, I know who's asking. I know I don't have any sort of position to deny you. I know who you are, Jesus. It would be ridiculous for me to say no. I'll say yes. But it doesn't mean that I see what you're doing. It doesn't mean that I understand it. It doesn't mean that I have any particular hope in it even. But because I obey, God has been able to show up in a way in my life that is slowly convicting and cleansing my heart of doubt, of disbelief, of despair, of old injuries, of disobedience in places. And because that's happening, I'm moving into a place that's more and more hopeful and expectant. And it's clearing my ears out so that I can hear God on bigger things as well. And that's what God wants. That's why we get off the couch in the morning. I understand that there are going to be days when it's the fear of the Lord that wakes you up or pushes you for something or gets you to deal with something that you're just really hesitant to deal with. But for the most part, in this season in your life, there should be a crown you're chasing. There should be something God is talking to you about in your life that you're excited about and that you're hopeful about and that you think God's going to do something great in this area and you're invested there. And if you follow that long enough, you get to that place of union where you don't care what happens to you. And it's not about dodging the switch or getting the carrot. It's just about giving God what he deserves. But it doesn't help us to lie that we're already there when we're not. So hopefully that's helpful to you guys and anybody else who's listening. God bless. That's it.